we know that the activist class loves to hate Israel. That's a given. So it wasn't surprising to see Greta Thunberg there with her keffiyeh on and everything like that. By the way, this is a young woman who has talked about the bullying of women who are in the public eye. And then she's part of this protest, which was basically a mass act of bullying against a 20-year-old Israeli singer. It was so grotesque. Ms. Golan couldn't even leave her hotel room at a certain point because there were so many threats against her life. And for Greta Thunberg to be part of that mob, I think was pretty sickening. But yeah, you're right. That hostility was only to be expected. But ordinary people in Europe seem to have tried to register their disdain for those people by voting for Israel. I mean, that's what I did. And I know lots of other people who did it too. And then there are lots of ordinary people out there who did the same thing. I think they're probably quite sickened by the bullying of the Israeli singer. And I think they're probably increasingly irritated by the anti-Israel hysteria of the cultural elites. I think that's what some people are feeling. I mean, I wouldn't want to get ahead of myself on this because I still do think there is a problem, certainly amongst the elites, but probably in sections of society as well, where there is, I would say, insufficient support for Israel. And I think lots of people still don't appreciate what is at stake in this conflict. So I wouldn't want to go too far down the optimistic road. But I do think it's quite interesting that where hating Israel is an absolute obsession of the upper echelons of society, it isn't amongst other sections of society. So that's something positive to hold on to. But I think, the negative, of course, is that what was done at Eurovision was absolutely repulsive. Those protests were horrendous. And again, the double standard is just extraordinary. You had all these British drag queens and these British LGBTQ activists saying, we're not watching Eurovision this year. We're closing down our gay pubs. We refuse to engage with it because of Israel is there. These are the same people who said nothing whatsoever about Britain's involvement in 2003, when we launched a pretty disastrous war in Iraq, or when we were engaged in the Afghan conflict, or when we were engaged in the Libyan conflict, all of which had pretty disastrous consequences for huge numbers of people. And in fact, I would go, your listeners and viewers will have a whole range of views on those wars, but it seems pretty unquestionable to me that British forces are responsible for larger numbers of deaths in the Middle East over the past 20 years, whether one thinks it's justifiable or not, than Israel is. It's unquestionable. And yet these British drag queens up on their moral high horses and other members of the kind of fashionable set were saying, well, we can't possibly watch Eurovision now that Israel's involved, whereas they were boogieing in their pubs to the naff entries that Britain sent over the past 20 years. Extraordinary double standards. And it comes down to, it's fundamentally a racial double standard. It fundamentally is about saying, well, we in Britain, we're a civilized country. It doesn't matter if we launch the occasional disastrous military campaign. We're fundamentally civilized. We're a good country. We are morally correct. We're morally upstanding. But Israel, that questionable little state, we can't have anything to do with that. So again, it comes down to that racial double standard. So yes, there is a lot to be positive about in terms of the public pushback against Israelophobia that we saw at Eurovision. But I think it also really revealed that the Israelophobia of the elites is, if anything, intensifying and really needs to be challenged on all fronts.
Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.